The silence had never felt so deafening as it did that night. Cameras flashed around the restaurant, capturing the moment when tech billionaire Elise Morgan realized that wealth couldn't buy what her daughter needed most. And it wasn't the single father's words that changed everything, it was his hands. If this story touches your heart, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Your support helps us continue sharing these moments that connect us all. Elise Morgan checked her Patek Philippe watch, a $250,000 accessory that felt weightless on her wrist, as she guided her 9-year-old daughter, Sophie, through the gleaming glass doors of Lumiere, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. The maitre d' practically bowed as they approached. "Ms. Morgan, an honor as always. Your usual table awaits." Elise nodded, her hand firmly on Sophie's shoulder. The girl's honey blonde hair was pulled into a perfect ballet bun that matched her mother's sleek updo. They were mirror images separated by 27 years, same azure eyes, same delicate features, same confident posture that Elise had carefully taught her daughter despite Sophie's inability to hear the instructions. The restaurant hummed with the quiet conversations of New York's elite. A senator dined with a Hollywood director in one corner. A famous novelist occupied another table. Elise recognized at least 3 fellow CEOs, who acknowledged her with respectful nods. At 45, Elise Morgan had built health tech solutions from a small startup into a $17 billion company that revolutionized remote patient monitoring. Her face had graced the cover of Forbes twice. None of that mattered tonight. This was Sophie's birthday dinner, and Elise was determined to make it perfect. "Your menu, madam," the waiter said, presenting an embossed leather folio to Elise before turning to Sophie with a smaller version. "And for the young lady." Sophie didn't react. Her eyes were fixed on the elaborate chandelier overhead, its crystals casting prism-like patterns across the white tablecloth. Elise touched her daughter's hand gently. When Sophie turned, Elise signed, "What would you like to eat, sweetheart?" Sophie's fingers moved quickly in response. "Can I have spaghetti?" Elise glanced at the menu: Wagyu beef, truffled risotto, butter-poached lobster. No spaghetti. She would like the pasta with a simple marinara, Elise told the waiter. Nothing too complex. The waiter's smile tightened. "I'm afraid we don't have." "I'm sure your chef can accommodate," Elise said, her voice soft but with the unmistakable edge that had intimidated boardrooms across the country. "For my daughter's birthday." "Of course, Ms. Morgan. Right away." As he retreated, Elise sighed. Every outing was like this, a series of small negotiations, accommodations, explanations. Sophie had been born with profound hearing loss, detected when she was 11 months old. By then, Elise was already a widow. Her husband James had died in a small aircraft crash when she was 6 months pregnant. She had navigated Sophie's diagnosis alone, just as she'd navigated everything else, with determination, resources, and the best specialists money could buy. Sophie tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed across the restaurant. "Who is that man looking at us?" Elise followed her daughter's gaze to a table near the window. A man in his late 30s sat with a girl approximately Sophie's age. His navy blue suit was well-tailored but not designer. He caught Elise's eye and quickly looked away, focusing instead on his daughter, who was also signing. "Another girl who signs," Sophie's hands moved excitedly. "Yes, I see," Elise replied, then added, "but remember what we discussed about staring." Sophie's enthusiasm dimmed, and guilt squeezed Elise's heart. Her daughter had so few opportunities to see other children communicating in her language. The exclusive private school Elise had chosen emphasized oral education alongside ASL, but there were only 3 other deaf children in Sophie's grade. The waiter returned with their appetizers, a salad of microgreens with edible flowers for Elise and a specially prepared plate of melon carved into butterfly shapes for Sophie. As they began to eat, Elise noticed the man at the other table watching them again, a thoughtful expression on his face. 20 minutes into their meal, Elise's phone buzzed. FDA approval for HealthTech's newest monitoring device had hit a snag. The email required an immediate response, and within minutes, Elise was typing furiously on her phone while Sophie pushed pasta around her plate, the excitement of her birthday dinner fading. Elise was so absorbed in her crisis management that she didn't notice the man approaching until he was standing at their table. He was taller up close, with kind eyes and laugh lines that suggested he smiled often. "Excuse me," he said. "I don't mean to interrupt, but my daughter Emily noticed your daughter signing and, well, she wanted to say hello." Beside him stood the girl Sophie had noticed earlier. She had dark curly hair and wore a simple blue dress with white sneakers, practical rather than fashionable. Elise was about to politely dismiss them when Sophie's eyes lit up. The girl, Emily, had already begun signing directly to Sophie. "Hi. I'm Emily. I'm deaf too. Is that your mom? Sophie's hands flew in response. Yes. I'm Sophie. Today is my birthday. I'm 9, I'm 9 too. Happy birthday, The man smiled at Elise. I'm Noah Campbell. I hope we're not intruding. Elise Morgan, she replied automatically, then realized he already knew exactly who she was. Most people did. And no. It seems our daughters are getting along. They speak the same language, Noah said, a hint of something, not quite criticism, but perhaps gentle observation, in his tone. Would you mind if Emily joins your daughter for a moment? She doesn't often meet other kids who sign. Before Elise could answer, Emily had already slipped into the chair beside Sophie, and the two were engaged in animated conversation, their hands creating a dance of communication that needed no sound. I suppose that's settled, Elise said, putting her phone down. Please, join us, Mr. Campbell. Noah, please. He sat in the empty chair across from her, his movements confident but not presumptuous. How did you know I'd be receptive to the interruption? Elise asked. Noah's smile was disarming. I didn't. But Emily saw another deaf child and practically begged me. Sometimes you have to take chances for your kids. There was no judgment in his words, but Elise felt a flicker of defensiveness. Sophie has plenty of interaction with other deaf children. I didn't mean to imply otherwise, Noah said quickly. Emily's school only has 2 other deaf students. It's a special night when she sees someone signing in public. Elise studied him. His watch was a simple Tissot, perhaps $500. His suit was Brooks Brothers, not Tom Ford or Brioni. There were no status symbols, yet he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin. What do you do, Noah? I teach high school science in the Bronx, he answered. Physics and chemistry. A teacher. His annual salary was probably less than what Elise spent on Sophie's birthday gifts. And Emily's mother? The question slipped out before Elise could stop it. She left when Emily was 3, Noah said matter-of-factly. The diagnosis was challenging for her. She decided parenting a deaf child wasn't what she signed up for. Elise glanced at Emily, who was showing Sophie something on a small notepad she'd pulled from her pocket. Both girls were giggling silently. I'm sorry, Elise said, and meant it. That must have been difficult. Noah shrugged. It was at first. But we managed. I learned ASL right alongside Emily. Became fluent faster than I expected, turns out I have a knack for languages. Now I teach ASL night classes twice a week. The waiter approached, looking uncertain about the change in their dinner arrangement. Would you like to order something? Elise asked Noah. Oh, no, we've already eaten. We were just having dessert. He gestured toward their table where 2 half-eaten slices of chocolate cake sat. Please, bring their dessert over, Elise told the waiter. And we'll have the birthday cake now. While the waiter arranged the transfer, Elise found herself watching the two girls. Sophie was more animated than she'd seen her in months. Her hands moved confidently, expressively, her face alight with the joy of easy communication. "She looks happy," Noah observed. "Yes," Elise admitted. "She does. If you don't mind me asking, how long have you been signing with her?" Elise hesitated. I'm still learning. I have an ASL tutor who comes 3 times a week, but with my schedule." She trailed off, suddenly aware of how inadequate her efforts sounded when spoken aloud. Noah nodded, no judgment in his expression. "It's a commitment. Took me about 2 years to become conversational. Now I dream in signs sometimes." The waiter returned with a small, exquisite cake adorned with a single candle. Sophie clapped her hands in delight, but it was Emily who caught Elise's attention. The girl was signing to Sophie, teaching her something. "What are they saying?" Elise asked, frustrated by her limited ASL vocabulary. "Emily's teaching Sophie the Happy Birthday song in sign," Noah explained. As the waiter lit the candle, both girls began to sign in unison, fluid, joyful movements that needed no voice to convey their meaning. Elise knew the basic signs for happy and birthday, but watching the full song performed by the two children was like witnessing a form of poetry. "I should know that," Elise murmured, more to herself than to Noah. "You can learn it tonight," Noah said. "Emily would be happy to teach you both." When the cake was served, Noah started to rise. "We should probably head back to our table and let you enjoy your celebration." "No," Elise said, surprising herself with the quickness of her response. "Please stay. She's having fun." Noah settled back into his chair. "If you're sure." As the girls devoured their cake, Noah and Elise fell into conversation. She learned that he'd grown up in Rochester, earned a PhD in physics from MIT, and turned down corporate research positions to become a teacher. He'd moved to New York when Emily was diagnosed, seeking the best resources for her education. "The corporate world's loss is your student's gain," Elise said, meaning it as a compliment. Noah smiled. "I could say the same about Sophie." "What do you mean?" "Just that you've clearly built something remarkable with your company, but Sophie's education seems equally important to you." Elise felt a flicker of discomfort. Was that true? She'd spared no expense on Sophie's education, certainly, the best schools, the best therapists, the best equipment. But time? Her own involvement? Those had been more limited than she cared to admit. "I try," she said finally. "It's not always easy to balance everything." "It never is," Noah agreed. "After Leslie left, I had to completely rethink my career. Switched from research to teaching for the more predictable hours. Still barely manage some days." The conversation shifted to their children's schools, their approaches to education, the challenges of raising a deaf child in a hearing world. Elise found herself admitting struggles she'd never voiced aloud, not to her executive team, not to her friends, not even to Sophie's therapists. "Sometimes I worry that I'm not doing enough," she confessed after describing a particularly difficult parent-teacher conference. "That all the resources in the world can't make up for not being fluent in her language?" Noah finished gently when she faltered. Elise nodded, a lump forming in her throat. "You're learning," Noah said. "That matters. But is it enough? She's 9 years old, and I still need an interpreter for complex conversations with my own daughter." Noah considered this. "Can I be honest with you?" Elise braced herself. "Please. It's never enough. Not for any parent. Hearing, deaf, doesn't matter. We all feel like we're falling short. But the fact that you worry about it? That you're trying? That counts for a lot." Before Elise could respond, Sophie tapped her arm. "Can Emily come to my house sometime?" she signed. Elise glanced at Noah, who had clearly understood Sophie's question. Yes, of course, if that's all right with Emily's father. Noah translated for Emily, whose face lit up as she nodded enthusiastically. Maybe this weekend? Noah suggested. If you're not too busy. Elise's automatic response would normally be to check her calendar, to mention her trip to Singapore, to suggest her housekeeper could oversee a playdate. Instead, she looked at Sophie's hopeful expression and said, Saturday would be perfect. I'll clear my schedule. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and more signing than Elise had ever attempted in public. When it was time to leave, Sophie and Emily exchanged hugs as if they'd been friends for years rather than hours. Thank you for making my birthday special, Sophie signed to Emily. Thank you for being my friend, Emily responded. Outside the restaurant, Elise's driver waited with her Range Rover. Noah's battered Honda was parked down the block. We can give you a ride, Elise offered. Thanks, but we're fine. It's not far, Noah said. Besides, I promised Emily we'd walk through Times Square on the way home. She loves all the lights and video screens. We can drop you near there, Elise persisted. Noah smiled. Another time, perhaps. After the Saturday playdate? Yes, Elise said, surprised at her eagerness. After the playdate. As they exchanged phone numbers, Sophie and Emily continued their silent conversation, reluctant to part. Finally, Noah gently tapped Emily's shoulder. Time to go, sweetheart, he signed, and then, to Elise's surprise, he turned to Sophie and signed, *Happy birthday, Sophie. I'm very happy to meet you, *. Sophie beamed and signed back, thank you for bringing Emily. Elise, determined not to be left out of this exchange, carefully formed the signs she knew, thank you both. Noah's approval was evident in his smile. You sign beautifully, he told her. Natural talent. They parted ways, Noah and Emily heading toward the lights of Times Square, Elise and Sophie into the luxury SUV. As they pulled away from the curb, Sophie tapped Elise's arm. I like them, she signed. Emily is my friend now. Yes, Elise replied, the sign coming easily. They are nice. You should learn more signs, Mommy, Sophie added. Then we can talk better. The simple observation struck Elise like a physical blow. All the money she'd spent on therapists, on schools, on technology, and what Sophie wanted most was simply to talk with her mother in her own language. Home, Ms. Morgan, the driver asked through the intercom. Actually, can you make a stop first? The Barnes & Noble in Union Square should still be open. An hour later, Elise sat on the edge of Sophie's bed, a stack of ASL books beside her and a beginner's guide open on her lap. Sophie, already in pajamas, watched curiously as Elise practiced the signs for I love you, good night, and sweet dreams. You're learning more, Sophie signed, her expression hopeful. Yes, Elise signed back. Every day. I promise, *. Sophie threw her arms around her mother's neck, holding tight. In that embrace, Elise felt something shift inside her, priorities rearranging themselves, perspectives changing. She had built an empire by identifying problems and creating solutions. Somehow, she had missed the most important solution of all. The Saturday playdate marked the beginning of a transformation. Emily arrived with Noah at Elise's Upper East Side penthouse, both of them wide-eyed at the expansive space with its panoramic views of Central Park. Your home is beautiful, Noah said as Elise led them through the foyer with its marble floors and contemporary art. It's just a place, Elise replied, suddenly seeing her home through their eyes, impressive but impersonal, more showroom than sanctuary. Sophie's playroom is this way. The playroom was the one space that truly reflected Sophie's personality, walls painted sunshine yellow, bookshelves filled with stories, art supplies covering a large table. The girls immediately gravitated toward the craft area, leaving Noah and Elise to sit somewhat awkwardly on a sofa clearly designed for smaller occupants. "Coffee?" Elise offered. "Or I could show you the rest of the place while they get settled." "Coffee would be great," Noah said. "And I'd love the tour." In the kitchen, all stainless steel and white quartz, Elise prepared espresso on a machine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. As they waited for the coffee to brew, Noah noticed a stack of ASL books on the counter. "You've been studying," he observed. "Every night this week," Elise admitted. "I've been using my insomnia productively." "Having trouble sleeping?" Elise hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I've been thinking about what you said at the restaurant. About learning alongside Emily. And realizing how much I've outsourced my relationship with Sophie." Saying it aloud made Elise wince. "I've hired the best tutors, the best interpreters, enrolled her in the best programs, but I've been letting other people communicate with my daughter for me." Noah accepted the espresso she handed him. "Being a single parent means making impossible choices sometimes. You chose to provide her with stability, resources, opportunities. But not myself," Elise said quietly. "Not enough of me." "It's never too late to change that," Noah replied, his voice gentle. "That's the thing about kids, they're remarkably forgiving if they see you're genuinely trying." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as Elise showed Noah around the apartment. He asked thoughtful questions about the art on her walls, commented knowledgeably on the first edition books in her study, and seemed genuinely impressed by the small greenhouse she'd built on the terrace for Sophie's science experiments. "You're not what I expected," Elise admitted as they returned to check on the girls. "What did you expect?" "I'm not sure. Someone more intimidated by." She gestured vaguely at her surroundings. Noah laughed. "I grew up with privilege, Elise. My parents were both academics. I went to private schools, then MIT. I chose my current life, it wasn't chosen for me." The revelation surprised her. "You chose to teach in the Bronx?" "I chose to make a difference where it's needed most," he corrected. "Same as you're doing with your medical technology, just on a different scale." When they reached the playroom, they found the girls deep in conversation, hands flying. Sophie noticed them first and waved them over excitedly. "Mommy. Emily invited me to her deaf community center tomorrow. Can we go? Elise looked at Noah questioningly. "It's a Sunday program at the community center near our apartment," he explained. "Games, storytelling, social time, all in ASL. Emily goes every week." "Please, Mom," Sophie signed, her expression pleading. Elise had a video conference scheduled with Tokyo for Sunday morning, followed by brunch with 2 potential investors. But looking at Sophie's hopeful face, at the first real friendship she developed in years, Elise knew there was only one answer. "Yes," she signed, the movement becoming more natural with practice. "We will go." Sophie jumped up and hugged her mother, then turned to Emily to share the exciting news. "Are you sure?" Noah asked quietly. "I know your schedule must be demanding." "I'm sure," Elise replied. "It's time I started experiencing Sophie's world instead of just funding it." The community center was nothing like Elise had imagined. Located in a renovated industrial building in Brooklyn, it was vibrant and welcoming, with colorful artwork covering the walls and an energy that was palpable the moment they walked through the door. Sophie gripped Elise's hand tightly as they entered, both excited and nervous. Emily, spotting them from across the room, came running over, pulling along an older woman who Elise soon learned was the program director. "Welcome," the woman signed, introducing herself as Marianne. "We're so happy to have new friends joining us." Elise's limited ASL vocabulary left her fumbling for a response, but Noah stepped in, signing fluently on her behalf while simultaneously voicing the translation for her benefit. "I told her you're just beginning to learn ASL but are committed to becoming fluent," he explained. She's thrilled. Marianne beamed at Elise. The parents' group meets in that room, she signed, pointing to a door across the hall. Many are learning just like you. Elise had expected to feel out of place. She usually did in new social situations where her wealth and status weren't known factors. Instead, she found herself welcomed into a circle of parents who understood exactly what she was experiencing. Some were fluent in ASL, others were beginners like her. Some had deaf children, others had hard-of-hearing kids, and some were deaf themselves with hearing children. A father named Marcus took Elise under his wing, showing her the basic signs she would need for the day and introducing her to others. My daughter lost her hearing at 4 after meningitis, he explained. That was 6 years ago. I couldn't even fingerspell back then. How long did it take you to become comfortable signing? Elise asked. About a year to become conversational, Marcus replied. But the real change was in my mindset. I had to stop seeing deafness as something that happened to me and start seeing it as something that opened up a whole new world for both of us. Throughout the day, Elise watched Sophie blossom. Her daughter moved confidently among the other deaf children, signing rapidly, laughing, playing games that needed no sound to be thoroughly engaging. During story time, Elise sat mesmerized as a deaf storyteller wove a tale entirely in ASL, her expressions and movements so clear that Elise could follow much of it despite her limited vocabulary. Noah found her during the lunch break, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the center's small cafe. How are you holding up? He asked, handing her a cup. It's overwhelming, Elise admitted. But in the best possible way. I had no idea places like this existed. There's a whole community out there, Noah said. Emily and I have been coming here for 5 years now. It's become our second home. Elise watched Sophie and Emily at a nearby table, surrounded by other children, all signing animatedly. She's never this confident at school, she observed. Even with her interpreter present. Because here, she's not the exception, she's the norm, Noah explained. No one's accommodating her. She just fits. The realization struck Elise with unexpected force. All this time, she'd been focused on helping Sophie navigate the hearing world, the best audiologists, the best speech therapists, the best technology to maximize her limited hearing. She'd viewed deafness as an obstacle to overcome rather than a culture to embrace. I've been thinking about this all wrong, she whispered. Noah squeezed her shoulder gently. You've been doing your best with the information you had. That's all any of us can do. When it was time to leave, Sophie was reluctant to go. Can we come back next week? She signed to Elise. Yes, Elise replied without hesitation. Every week. On the drive back to Manhattan, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's excitement. Noah, who had accepted Elise's offer of a ride this time, sat beside her in comfortable silence. Thank you, Elise said finally. For introducing us to this. 4. She struggled to articulate the enormity of what had shifted in her perspective. For showing me what I was missing. You would have found it eventually, Noah assured her. You love your daughter too much not to have figured it out. Maybe. But it might have taken years. Elise glanced back at Sophie's sleeping form. Years we couldn't afford to waste. When they reached Noah's apartment building, a modest pre-war structure in Washington Heights, Elise made a spontaneous decision. Would you and Emily like to join us for dinner next Friday? She asked. I'm attempting to cook Sophie's favorite pasta myself instead of ordering in. Fair warning, it might be disastrous. Noah's smile warmed something in Elise that had been cold for a very long time. We'd love to. And I make a decent garlic bread, if that helps. It definitely helps, Elise replied, returning his smile. In the months that followed, Sophie's world expanded, and so did Elise's. The Sunday community center visits became a fixed part of their schedule. Elise rearranged board meetings, delegated more responsibilities to her executive team, and began working from home 3 days a week. Her ASL improved rapidly with daily practice. She found an instructor who came to their home 4 evenings a week, teaching both her and Sophie more advanced signing. Noah and Emily often joined these sessions, turning them into dinner gatherings that filled the penthouse with laughter and conversation. Sophie's confidence grew with each passing week. Her grades improved. Her teachers reported she was more engaged, more willing to participate in class discussions through her interpreter. She began inviting friends from both school and the deaf community for sleepovers and weekend activities. Elise noticed changes in herself as well. The crushing weight of solitary responsibility began to lighten as she built connections with other parents of deaf children. She learned to delegate more effectively at work, to trust her team with day-to-day operations while she focused on strategic decisions and product development, and on being present for Sophie. And then there was Noah. What had begun as friendship evolved gradually into something deeper. Their weekly dinners became twice weekly, then more. They took the girls to museums, to Broadway shows with ASL interpreters, to weekend trips upstate where the 4 of them hiked and explored and built memories together. 6 months after that first chance meeting at Lumiere, Elise hosted a birthday party for Sophie at their penthouse. It was nothing like the parties she'd organized in previous years, no elaborate themes, no hired entertainment, no extravagant gifts. Instead, the apartment was filled with children from both Sophie's school and the Deaf Community Center, all communicating in a joyful mix of ASL and spoken English. Noah found Elise on the terrace, taking a moment of quiet amid the celebration. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "I was just thinking about how different this is from last year," Elise replied. "Last year, we had a catered dinner at Lumiere, just the 2 of us, and I spent half the time on my phone handling a work crisis. And this year?" Elise gestured toward the living room, visible through the glass doors, where Sophie stood surrounded by friends, her hands moving expressively as she signed a story to her captivated audience. "This year, she's happy," Elise said simply. "Really, truly happy." Noah slipped his arm around her waist, a gesture that had become familiar and comforting over the past months. "So are you," he observed. "Yes," Elise agreed, leaning into his embrace. "I am." Later that evening, after the last guest had departed and Sophie had fallen asleep surrounded by new books and art supplies, Elise and Noah sat together on the living room sofa, a half-empty bottle of wine between them. "I have something to ask you," Noah said, his expression suddenly serious. "That sounds ominous," Elise replied, only half joking. "Not ominous. Just important." He took her hand in his. "Emily and I have been invited to spend the summer at a deaf arts camp in Vermont. I'll be teaching science and ASL, and Emily will be attending as a camper. It's an amazing opportunity for both of us." "That sounds wonderful," Elise said, ignoring the twinge of disappointment at the thought of not seeing them for an entire summer. "I want you and Sophie to come with us," Noah continued. "Sophie as a camper, you as, well, they need someone to help with administration, fundraising, organizational development. Your expertise would be invaluable." Elise blinked, surprised. As applause, both clapped hands and raised, shaking hands in the deaf applause, filled the auditorium. Elise reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that chance encounter at Lumiere to their summer at the Vermont camp, which had become an annual tradition, through her marriage to Noah last fall in a ceremony conducted in both spoken English and ASL, to the non-profit foundation she had established to support deaf education and accessibility initiatives while still leading health tech. Her life had expanded in ways she could never have imagined, becoming richer, fuller, more meaningful with each passing day. She had learned that true communication went beyond words, spoken or signed, to the deeper understanding that comes from opening your heart to another person's experience. As Sophie bounded down from the stage and into their waiting arms, Elise signed the words that had become their family's motto. "With love, nothing is impossible." Sophie beamed, signing back, "And with family, love is everywhere." The silence that had once seemed so isolating now felt like a sacred space where understanding flourished. Elise Morgan had built a billion-dollar empire by solving other people's problems, only to discover that the most valuable solution had been waiting in the simplest gesture: open hands, ready to learn a new language of love. Asterisk: if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Your support helps us share more stories about the unexpected connections that change our lives forever. Asterisk.